When it comes to design, you've got to remember there really are no rules. It's just all about showcasing your personal style. I'm Amanda Forrest, and I've teamed up with interior finishings company Metrie to take you on a design journey. We will provide you with tips, tricks, and design inspiration so you can achieve a look you'll love in your home.
This video is going to walk you through how to install crown molding so you can have the confidence needed to start your next project. Now that I've made it to my local home improvement store, look at the choices in product that I'm faced with. There's a couple of pieces I want to point out to you here though. This first piece of crown molding is really pretty. It's got a lot of details and lines in it, and it's perfectly suited for a traditional home. Now, if tradition maybe isn't your style, how about this piece? It's much more simplistic, but still got this interesting banding detail in it, and it's perfect for a contemporary space. Now, you can always purchase a smaller offcut of molding to take home and try out your choices. You don't have to worry about fitting a 16-foot length in your car. As a designer, I'm comfortable with interior finishing products, but I'm not necessarily familiar with the step-by-step process to installing crown molding. So I'm going to enlist my friend and contractor, Jeff Hobson, who's going to walk us through the easy process of getting it installed. Hey Jeff, it's so good to see you again.
Good to see you again too.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here because I've got this project to install crown molding today.
Okay.
So is this something that is difficult?
Crown molding's not that hard to install if shown how to properly do it. But if you follow steps closely, take your time, any person can do it.
Can you at least just tell me maybe step number one and let me digest that?
Step number one's the easiest. You just pick it up from the store,
okay,
bring it to your house, and let it climatize overnight. Once you get the wood home, it's a good idea to actually put it in the room where you're going to be installing it. That'll climatize it and actually bring the proper moisture content of your home into the wood. If you get it and leave it outside too long, moisture will get inside it, and when you go to install it, when it dries out, it'll shrink. Vice versa, it'll expand if you have it too dry and you bring a lot of moisture within the room.
So what are some of the tools that I'm going to need to put this crown molding up?
Tools you need for crown molding installation would be, most importantly, your safety equipment, paper, pencil for marking out any detailed drawings, a measuring tape, a ladder, compound miter saw, wood glue, angle finder, a nail gun, stud finder, caulking, and some sandpaper to final it off. A great idea is to have a friend come give you a hand. Longer lengths of crown molding can be difficult to hold up at one end while you're trying to test fit them in the corner there. If you can get a friend and an additional ladder in the corner, it's going to make your life that much easier. First thing we need to do is mark out the studs. Marking your studs is important because that's your solid backing you're going to mount the crown molding to. So first off, we put the ladder securely in the corner.
Okay.
And you're going to walk on up. Now about 6 inches down from the ceiling, you're going to put the painter's tape on a straight horizontal line. So that's so we're not actually going to be drawing on your painted wall.
Okay.
Next, you're going to need a stud finder and a pencil. You simply rest up against the wall and slowly move it across until it indicates that there's a stud. Okay. When you do that, then just mark right above it on the painter's tape where the studs are.
Okay.
And that's it. And then we continue around the room until you've actually marked out all the studs within the room.
All right.
And then that's your first step.
Can we start anywhere, like the center, or?
It's always best to start on an inside corner. When planning your starting point, it's best to pick an inside corner of a miter. That way you can work from either side outward from there. Step number 3 is getting your measurements. So we have to take the length of the wall measurement.
Okay.
And we have to figure out the angle of that corner.
Wow, that sounds complicated.
It's not. Again, we're going to use one of the tools we have, the angle finder for the corner.
Okay.
And our measuring tape to measure the length of the wall. Getting the correct measurements is important for accurately installing crown molding. If you get your measurements off, it's not going to fit properly. Accurate measurements ensure that it's going to be a tight fit.
Up the ladder.
Okay, as high as you can reach and tight to the wall.
Okay.
Okay, 124 inches.
So now show me how to go ahead and measure this corner.
Okay, first we'll need an angle finder. One way to find out if your angles are out of square is to take an angle finder, butt it into the corner of the wall, and then read off your number.
90.7.
Okay, well we can round it down to 90. On the chop saw, we can actually take our miter over to 45, which would be 2/2 of that.
So now we're obviously ready to go cut, right?
Not that easy.
No?
We have to factor in the other side of the piece of the wood we got to cut. So we're going to go over to that corner, reconfirm that we have the length measurement right, and check the angle of the corner as well. Once you've jotted out your floor plan of the room and you've taken your measurements, you can then take that back to the chop saw and have it ready for cutting. As a homeowner installing crown molding, you may want to only do one wall at a time. This assures you don't get ahead of yourself making a lot of miscuts. Test pieces are small pieces of crown molding we can use as templates and make any adjustments we need on these first prior to transferring them to our final piece of the wood. We want to basically mark out a rough estimate of just the angle.
Okay.
So we're not to make mistakes when we lay it down on the saw.
Okay.
And here just make a simple R for right side.
Okay.
And then the opposite, we're just going to lay it exactly up the opposite wall.
Okay.
Make sure it's sitting the way you want it. Again, just draw a 45-degree angle roughly.
Yeah.
Just for a reference.
And then I can label that one left.
Left-hand wall. Once we have our angles, we're going to take that to the saw, lay them up against the saw, and cut the appropriate angle. Here we can bring it back as a test piece, hold it up in the corner, and ensure the angle we cut is the proper one we need.
Oh, that looks fantastic.
That's perfect. So
Great.
that means we actually got our angles right in the first. Now we can transfer those marks over to our pieces that we're actually going to permanently install. When cutting crown molding, you actually lay it in the saw backwards from what you think it would be.
Wow.
That
Okay.
sounds confusing, but like I said before,
Yes.
upside down and backwards, we have to transfer that thought to here. So
Okay.
again, we rest it up here for reference,
Okay.
butt it up against the fence,
Yes.
and then you have your bottom piece down, and then we're gonna turn the crown molding up and sit it tight like it would up against the wall, but upside down into the saw. So you want the bottom piece tight up against there, and down here at the top of the crown, you want tight to the bottom of the saw. Make sure everything safety-wise is in place. You have your eye and ear protection on.
Okay.
Lock the saw.
Okay. And
Firmly hold the crown molding, and then we'll fire up the saw and actually plunge through and make a clean cut. When installing crown molding, the three angles you're going to be dealing with are an inside miter, an outside miter, and a scarf joint. The steps for installing crown molding on an inside corner of a wall are: one, we need to find out the actual angle of the wall. Is it square or 90 degrees? Is it more or less? Previously, I mentioned 90 degrees on the corner.
Yes.
Again, we're gonna have to take that number and divide it in half because we're working with the saw.
Okay.
We have two pieces we're gonna have to install into a corner.
Yes.
Both have to be 45 degrees to add up to 90. Once we have that measurement there, we're gonna need to transfer that over to our miter saw. Here, once we got that angle, we checked with our test pieces to make sure the corner is what we need it to be. We're gonna make that cut. For now, we're doing the opposite cut, so we're gonna have to change the saw to the opposite side of 45 degrees. Measure down to the other side of the piece, transfer that template piece we did onto that corner. We're gonna make that cut and then transfer that piece of trim over to our wall. Steps for cutting and installing an outside corner are essentially reverse to what we did on the inside corner. Again, we need to find out if the angle is actually square. Take our angle finder and get that measurement. From here, we're going to take the templated pieces, check them on the outside corner, make sure they're tight, especially at the top. Once we have that tight fit again, we're going to transfer those cuts onto our finished piece of the wood. Once we got those transferred off, we're going to make the first initial cut. Then we're going to measure down the piece of wood.
Okay.
Take the other template piece, mark it on there, make the appropriate cuts on the crown molding. And then install the crown molding from there. If you have a longer wall than the piece of crown you're trying to install, and you have to install two pieces of crown together, we generally use a scarf joint. It's two overlapping angles. Steps for cutting and installing a scarf joint is: for one, make sure your one piece of crown molding is cut on a 45-degree angle and installed already on the wall. You need to take your secondary piece of crown molding, cut it on the opposite miter, lay it on top with glue, nail it off there, and from here you're going to continue down the run and work on your inside or outside miters.
This is the pretty part. Finally, this crown molding is going to go up to the ceiling.
The correct steps for nailing crown molding to the wall is to go back to the marks we made on where our studs are on the wall. Here we nestle the crown up against the corner. Now it's up in position, it's tight to the ceiling and the wall, and we can actually find our stud, which we had marked out here, and nail it off. Again on the ceiling. From here we take a corresponding piece, glue it, connect that in the corner, nail it off as well, ensure we got a tight fit. And you repeat that step around the room until you have a finished rim of crown. After the crown molding is installed, the steps you need to take to do the final finishes are to run a bead of caulking around the top and the bottom of the crown molding, fill any nail holes you have, sand out that fill once it's dried, and paint the crown molding.
Well, thank you so much. This was a really interesting learning curve for me, and I'm feeling much more confident now that I may be able to tackle this myself. Taking on a new challenge can be exciting and rewarding. I hope with our step-by-step instructions and professional tips, we've inspired you to try something new in your home.